Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wine Wednesday, where we whine and then refine our thinking. Today, I look like a hot mess. As my sisters like to say, don't mind me, I look disgust. I, real talk, haven't showered in 3 days. Okay? Don't judge me. Hashtag mom life. Please someone comment below and tell me that it's also been that long for you at some point and make me feel better about myself, okay? Today's glass of wine is coming from Back That Glass Up. Love that name. Okay, this is Scout and Cellar. She's a Scout and Cellar rep, so go check her out. I'm gonna tag her below here. This is the Dove Hunt Dog Cabernet Sauvignon. Cab Sauvs are like definitely my favorite. I chilled it before drinking it here, so it's amazing how much of a difference that makes the taste, okay? It makes it taste sharper to me when it's chilled, or at least this one, so that's interesting. I really like, see now here's what we gotta do. You gotta swirl it around a little to open it up on my white bedding. Maybe this isn't a good idea. Okay, doesn't have very strong legs, I know that. If it takes longer to slide down, then that's when you say it has strong legs. It's, the legs are, they're average, all right. What I love about the Scout and Cellar wines is they're not sweet. Even the sweeter wines, it's like they're not artificially sweet because there's no sweeter or sugar added to it. So it's nice. I'm liking this. Dry tasting. I don't know the right things to say with wine. Full bodied. It's definitely new aged. No, new world. I don't know. We're gonna need this big of a glass tonight because guess what we're talking about, guys? Science and how it's failing us, because I just read a post and I'm super fired up and pissed, so that's the best time to do a Wine Wednesday, right? Yep. All right, here we go. Take a drink. Let's get started. 3 reasons why science is failing us, okay? I just read a post. I'm done, all right? From a scientist who was talking about cherry picking data. And they were talking specifically about the recent viral videos that have come out about various doctors saying that hydroxychloroquine is a cure and or potential treatment for COVID-19. And she was making the argument it is not a cure or a treatment because the studies that they cite when they're talking about it are cherry-picked and incorrect. I needed a sip, hold on. I commented on that. It never goes anywhere, right? That's the best thing to do. Comment on something because that wins the argument. I commented on that and was like, okay, but who cares about the back and forth of the science? Right now, how do you throw out all of the data showing that it helps? I know people who have done that exact treatment of the hydroxychloroquine with the 1 or 2 in combination with 1 or 2 other, I forget what they're called, drugs. And they went from having a really bad case of it to being perfectly fine, okay? And that was the only medication they took. But they just throw that out, okay? So segue, here we go. 3 reasons why science is failing us right now in the medical field, in skincare world, and the beauty industry and cosmetics, all of it, okay? Number 1, they throw out any evidence of anything that could be anecdotal evidence. They are so quick to throw out any kind of personal testimony. Why? Because people aren't good at knowing themselves, or maybe that's what it was, and maybe it wasn't what's helped. Maybe it was actually something else, and that does happen. Yes, okay, or they tried that skincare and then they said that their skin felt smoother. Maybe it wasn't that though. Maybe it was the fact that they did this or tried this or did this in combination with it. There's no control. Scientists don't like how there's no control in things having to do with personal testimony because there's no way to solidify and 100% say that that's what did it. Unless you're someone who's very in tune with your body, yourself, your circumstances, whatever, and you're like, no, I'm telling you, this was 100% it. They're not going to believe that, okay? Then it makes sense. You're just taking someone's word for it. Sure, okay? But then we have also the anecdotal evidence is not correct evidence or, isn't viable evidence. Like, skincare related stuff. I was just talking with an esthetician in training, and she was saying technically dairy is, science can't really say that dairy per se is linked to skin problems. But that's like kind of a common thing we know at this point. It's kind of the unspoken, like, well, but it is. Like, one of the first things that any woke dermatologist will tell you is, well, maybe cut out dairy, because that's something that oftentimes irritates the skin more or causes it to be more inflamed. Even if it's not the cure 100%, but it's something that contributes to it, right? Okay, science officially can't really tell us that that's connected per se. It kind of can, but it kind of can't, okay? So now think of it in terms of maybe like vaccines, right? Think about the hundreds, thousands of mothers that are saying, no, really, I'm telling you, my kid was fine. And then they had a vaccine and then they started having seizures, or they started having speech problems, or they started showing signs of different things that they were not previously showing before that. Now, a lot of times science will throw that out. Why? Because they'll say, well, the studies show that they're fine, the vaccines are fine, and that, maybe you just weren't seeing it before that, and maybe that's just something that you weren't picking up on. First of all, if anyone's saying that, you're not a parent, okay? Because I know my kids, okay? My kid makes it sound wee-wee. I know he's trying to say the word essential oils, okay? I know my kids. And moms don't have an ulterior motive for sharing information like that and saying that something, the vaccine injured the kid. There's no money involved there. What do they have to lose? What do they have to gain? Nothing. They have nothing, okay? Science will throw that out. I am sick and tired of all of these personal testimonies of things. And in this case, like with the coronavirus, there'll be personal testimonies of something that is working. But they'll throw it out because they'll just be like, well, anecdotal evidence is not viable evidence and there's no control. Someone could be, just thinking it's that, but not. It's, the peer pressure mindset of, well, other people say it works for them, so maybe it works for me too. And all those things are viable at different times. Yes, they're true. Or I'm not saying take in all information, but I'm just saying it's a fault. It's an area of science that is wrong. And I honestly don't know how they would be better at it. We need to talk about it. I don't know. We would need to conversate about it with scientists, but they typically don't really want to listen, at least the ones I've talked to. They just, so there you go. All right, there's number one. Number two, along the lines of that, when taking in new information, scientists have an extreme weight in the body of evidence, okay? And it makes sense. Again, it makes sense. It's just, we're not there yet, guys. We're missing something, okay? There's a lot of different steps to how to determine if a scientific study that has been done is legitimate, and if you can consider it viable information. Enough to change your mind on something or believe something, right? So there's different levels of it. How to read a scientific paper, okay? Lots of different levels. Was it done on a human? Was it done on an animal? Studies done on animals are more preliminary. It's like one of the first steps that you do. So it's like, okay, well, that's something, but we're not really there yet. So again, they're gonna really throw that out. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, it should be because it wasn't able to be replicated in humans. Okay, so that then makes sense, right? So this is really anything having to do with medical related, health or skincare. It's all of them. Okay. There's different varying things like that. Who is the author? Is it peer reviewed? These are all questions that you ask yourself when determining if a scientific paper is legitimate. Who's funding it? And what about the concentration in the dose? That plays a big part in determining if it really should be a concern or not, if it's a hazard versus a risk, right? Two different things. So when it comes to weighing new studies that come out, even if there's a viable study that comes out, guys, okay, about, I don't know, let's throw out there parabens, okay? even if a viable study comes out about parabens that is like, yeah, that's, bad, or I don't know, heavy metals, or, whatever, lead in lipstick, all these things, talc. There's so many studies. You can always find a study to back up what you're saying. There's always so many different things. And that's how it's so hard, is to read a scientific study to see what's legitimate. Okay. But a scientist is going to put the most weight in, at the end of the day, the body of evidence. Okay. So think of it like a scale. If you've got a certain amount on this side and a certain amount of this side, and you've got this much all the way down here deeming parabens totally safe, and you've only got this much handful of small studies saying that parabens may not be safe, right? They're going to go with the body of evidence. They're going to go down here. Even if these studies are legitimate, they're going to go over here. Why? Because it's the full weight of the body of evidence. And this brings me to number 2 of why science is failing us. It takes them so freaking long to course correct. When we have so many studies proving something that are outdated, that are just, even if there's just a lot of them, okay, believing a certain thing, it takes them so freaking long to catch up, okay? So it's not that we in the green beauty movement, if you will, I don't really like that term, but it's not that we are going against what science is saying. It's just that science is unwilling to look at the studies that we're saying and deem it as worthy. Because why? There's not enough of them, or they're only animal studies, or they're, whatever. They aren't peer reviewed yet. And those are legitimate. They do have to be taken into consideration. But I think the bigger picture here needs to be looked at, well, it's going to take a really long time to come up with all of the studies proving that that's actually bad. If we've got so many already saying it's totally fine, okay? Especially when there's money involved. And that brings me to number 3, okay, of why science is failing us right now. It's all rigged, yo. It's all rigged, okay? It is harder to find scientists that would be willing to even do studies that have the potential to be going against what big pharma is saying, or going against what the big companies are saying. Why? Because of the money involved. It's going to take a long time, or maybe it's not even possible, because of money and corruption and power, to even conduct the studies in the first place, to show that actually what big pharma is saying is wrong, okay? It takes so long to get to that point, to be able to even find the funding, find the person willing to do it, okay? They say science is unbiased. Some is, some isn't. It just depends on the scientist. I'm not saying they're all bad. They're not. And it's more the bigger picture here. I mean, most of the scientists don't even know this stuff, It's like, when you really look at the big picture, though, there's so many things at play here, and it's all boiling down to mostly money and power. Really, at the end of the day, it is, okay? And that's why at the end of the day, it's so hard to find a scientist that's going to take you seriously in what you're saying with studies that you feel that concern you, And what do you have to go off of? You got just to go off of your personal experience of, am I crazy? I've been doing all these things and it's not working, but science says it should be. Where's the disconnect? Good question, okay? I'll be real with you. It's something I struggle with. Struggle back and forth with this. I follow a lot of scientists purposely for the reason of seeing both sides of the coin. And it's very difficult to figure out, where can we do better in not going against science too much to where we're just making fools of ourselves and we really aren't like being logical, But then on the other side, what is science failing in answering for us, right? So I don't think at this point it's technology that's keeping us from having those answers. It's the money, and it's the power, and it's the big corporations that are funding these different studies. Because as any scientist will tell you, at the end of the day, you can find a study to back up anything you want, and companies know that. So I don't really have a moment here of where do we refine this. You're going to have to tune in next week, because next week we're going to talk about 3 ways I think that the clean beauty movement can do better. So this has been fun. If you feel what I'm feeling right now, then comment below and tell me. I would really love to hear your thoughts on this, and if this is something that you've thought of, or if I'm just going crazy. Okay, I love you all.